Hi everyone, it's me Lisette and welcome to Proverbs Home. I am so happy you could be here today. Today we're going to be doing a special video. I do have my bonnet on today and I'm going to be sharing the music in my bonnet poem that I wrote a couple of years ago. I'm going to share that with you. Like Cinderella. Now that used to be one of my favorite, kind of still is, favorite princesses. Not because it was Disney, just because I like the story of Cinderella. You know, I didn't like what she went through, but I like how she conquers, how she always kept her composure, and with those wicked stepsisters. You know, metaphorically speaking, we all have those wicked people in our life that try to give us a hard time, whether it's through social media, whether it's in family, whether it's outside of family, whether it's wherever we are, our jobs, wherever we are in life. Sometime in our life, we've met somebody that's given us a hard time, okay? Unless we're so perfect that we've never had a problem, and that isn't true. At least it's not for me. So her sisters were so wicked, and they made her clean and work hard and fix their clothes. And there was this ball in town. But those sisters, those stepsisters, they were so wicked, they didn't want her going to the ball. The stepmother was so jealous of her beauty and jealous of who she was that they didn't want her going to the ball, right? So Cinderella helped them get their dresses mended together. Pretty and fancy and everything. And then when it was time for her to go after she put a dress together, they tore her dress and they left her there crying. But the godmother came, right, and sprinkled some fairy dust. But one of the things about the story is that glass slipper, right? The glass slipper that Cinderella had lost at the ball. She lost one glass slipper. Have you lost your glass slipper? You feel cinder? You know, that's how she got her name, because she sat by the fireplace and the cinders hit her in the face. What about you? Do you sometimes feel stained by the cinder in this world, by the things that is going on in this world? And you feel sometimes like you're like Cinderella, like you're sitting and you're waiting for that ball to go to the ball. You know, I was thinking the other day, wouldn't it be nice if we had like a ball, like the old times? We rented a hall and all of us women went in beautiful gowns and we wore beautiful gowns and our beautiful bonnets and we danced and we had like an old-fashioned vintage ball. Wouldn't that be great? Oh, it would be. Well, that's the way Cinderella felt, right? Well, Cinderella ends up going to the ball and she dances with the prince all night long. And then she realizes, oh, I'm not really a princess or anybody like that. All I am is a servant girl. And she runs from the ball. Runs, the glass slippers left behind. And she goes back to where she was. How many of you are doing that? Because you feel like you're nothing. You feel like, I'm not her. I can't do that. I can't write a book. I can't do this. I can't do that. Because who am I to do that? And you're leaving that glass slipper behind that God has for you. Don't run. Well, that's what she did, right? And then everybody was trying to fit into her glass slipper. All the women wanted to marry the prince, so they were trying to stick their foot into the glass slipper. Big feet, small feet, wide feet. But there was only one shoe for her. She was the only one that fit those shoes. Why are you trying to fit into someone else's slipper? Why do we do that as women? Even like that, we just try to fit into other people's shoes. Why can't I do that? I want to be like that. God doesn't want us to do that. He wants us to fit into the shoes He's given us. He gave us our own shoes to walk in. He gave us our own blessings. He gave us He called us our own ministries, the things that He's called us to do. Walk in those shoes that God has given you. I was reading an article today. Let's take a thumbnail. Let's see. There we go. Okay. I was reading an article today. This was in today's Penny Saver. Penny Saver's upstate New York, and we love the Penny Saver. And the article was talking about the town that I live in. Now, our town, the water is sulfur water. This used to be a town that used to be booming with hotels and booming with bathhouses. Now, many of you don't know what a bathhouse is. It's not a place where you just go take a bath. It has springs of sulfur water, and people thought back then that the sulfur water would bring healing. Flagler Museum. And if you haven't gone to that museum when you're in Florida, try to go. It's a beautiful museum. But downstairs in the Flagler Museum, they used to have a pool, and it was sulfur water. That was the first pool in the United States. And people would go there. Bands would play music, and then people would go swimming in the sulfur water. Some people drink it. I never drank sulfur water because I can't stand the smell. Okay. However, this used to be a booming town where women used to come to go to the resorts. This was considered a resort. Going to the sulfur water was a resort. Okay, they had golf courses here. They had hotels where you could come and stay, which those don't exist no more. We have some that exist, but they're apartments now, and they're not hotels. You know, things change throughout the years. This article. And they were wondering why widows would come to this part, because a lot of widows would come here and they would congregate. They would go out to dinner together. They would do things together. They were pretty widows. They were widows that weren't that attractive, skinny widows, plus size widows, you know, all different kind of women back then. And there were women that were kind of threatened by the young widows. They were threatened by the widows that were pretty, and they were young, and they had just lost their husband, and they dressed really pretty in these beautiful outfits. And some of them were business women. Some of them were chaperones. They would come with their pretty daughters, and they would chaperone them, and they would do different things. Or they would come to the bank. And back then they had the stocks and all that stuff, and they would come here to make business. But there were people that didn't like it. They didn't like that these widows were coming here, that they were going to the bathhouses, they were going to all these different places. And you know, back then they didn't wear scandalous bathing suits. That didn't exist back then. Women wore like these pretty, like short cut off dresses that they wore and stuff, but there were still people that were threatened by that. There was one widower that would come into town. There was one widower that would be here. And I wanted to share this with you because it's the point that I'm trying to get at. And I will get at it really quick here. But I want to share something here that I was reading that I thought was pretty interesting. There are widows of all ages. Vulnerable widow, dignified and sedate. The middle-aged widow, who chaperones her pretty daughter and talks of bank books. Young widows, who are dreaded by the girls and married women as dangerous with their charms, providing, captivating to the lords of creation in general. Literary widow, the lady who discusses the topics of the hour in elegant and well-chosen expressions. The widow of whom, it may be said, has a lack of knowledge that would fill a large volume. There are, of course, musical widows who talk Wagner and Weber and the Italian schools of singing. There are rich widows who are laden with diamonds and pearls, rubies, and the gems of India and Africa, and the poor little widow, whose only outward adornment is a corsage of sweet peas and 1 or 2 rings on her dear little fingers. That touched me. Because so many times our widows are so overlooked. We'll overlook them. And by the way, Elijah's here. Elijah, you want to say hi? Some of you were asking for him, so here he goes. Let me show you. Say hi, buddy. They were asking about you. Hey, baby. Oh, he's holding my hand. So yeah, so it touched my heart because the person that wrote this article was basically, even though they were complimenting them, but they were also, if you read the rest of the article, I'm not going to read the whole thing. They were kind of critical of them. I will try to copy it. I don't know if I'm going to be able to do that and put it in the community tab so you can read it. And I thought so many times we overlook the women that have lost their husbands. We're there when they have the funeral and they have the burial. We give them our condolences, take them a meal, and then they're forgotten. We can't do that. We have to remember our widows. We have to remember to be there for them. We have to remember to encourage them. And here these widows were coming to this town. They were coming here. And they were going to, they were here because it was a resort and they enjoyed it. And they were rich widows and pretty widows and poor widows and all different kind of widows. But they were all here for the very same purpose. But yet they were being kind of pointed the finger at the person that wrote this article, if you read the rest of the article. I think that was amazing to learn about the different widows. The way I picture widows back then was they all just wore black and that was it. That's how I picture them. But this broke it down for me and it showed me that they were different. That they dressed different. That some of them were rich. They wore pretty dresses. They still were women with a heart even though they lost their loved one. Right, Elijah? They were still women. Let's not forget our widows. This is a great article. A great article. My husband's usually the first to read this newspaper. Sometimes I don't read it, but when I saw, of course, the vintage, I was like, I gotta read it, see what it's about. And it's called Consider This. End of the article, it says, the article was unsigned, which was probably a good thing considering the number of widows and widowers who must have read it at this time. Since the heading was A Widow's Impressions, perhaps it was composed by a disgruntled member of the fair sex who came looking for love but had to settle for the unrequited kind. Unrequited. Can't forget our widows. And they were widowers, but they weren't as many. And if you're a widow, you're never alone. You are loved, and I want you to know that. Home with you that I told you about. Music in my bonnet. Pink bonnet, pink bonnet. How pretty you are, draping with lace as I strum my guitar. Pink bonnet, I wear you outside. You're making sweet music as all the beaux pass on by. Pink bonnet, so vintage and nice. Come hear my sweet music as a favorable price. Pink bonnet, how pretty you are, draping with lace as I strum my guitar. I actually wrote that 2 years ago, May 31st, 2021. I really love bonnets. I love the vintage life. I just think it's amazing. Okay, so bye everyone. Kisses and hugs. I love you all.